Good morning, lovely souls. Happy 2023 and welcome to week 1 of the Woodland Chronicles. I'm changing the format of what I'm doing slightly. Still in the woods, or on the occasional Friday I might be in another scene or another setup somewhere, depending on what I'm doing. But my intention is to go through each week of this year with both a practical and an esoteric spiritual observation of what's going on around us, because I think we're going to need the breakdown, to be perfectly honest. It's opened with a very, very interesting energy this year, hasn't it, so far? What I'm noticing, and particularly I did a lovely live presentation for Jackie White the other night, over in Romsey on Tuesday. It's only Friday now, but one thing that was a regular reoccurring point of feedback, and also especially within my own personal experience, is the state of our collective nervous systems. Okay, so today I'm looking a little bit about what this big gateway toothpaste tube and resetting of energy is doing to us. And some of you might not be in the least bit surprised to realise that it's a little bit like being put on a barbecue grid or in a microwave and having the heat, the coals, the gas, whatever, turned up on full. So, and especially we've got the full moon in Cancer as well. All of these different things, they make for a perceived quantity of pressure within our physical selves that need careful attention. Okay, so all of this light comes in, all of the frequencies we receive, we physically acknowledge it, we take it into ourselves, but our poor old nervous system has to play catch up. In fact, it's the first thing that will register the presence of an increased quotient of light. So it all comes in, we receive it by the solar junction, high above our heads, up by our monadic presence, that comes down our antecorona tube. It then meets the stellar gateway, which is 1.5 meters above the top of our heads. Now the stellar gateway opens like a chalice, and it will receive the light that is exactly correct for you. It won't just receive the whole lot. Your entire spiritual setup will be designed to feed you what you need, but a little bit more than you are actually able to cope with at the time. So it's a little bit like training for a physical event. Say I just before Christmas I took my 2nd degree black belt, and during the lead up to that I was always pushing myself physically. I was always doing more than my body could cope with. So that's a little bit like when we receive the light. Okay, so it's always more than we can cope with, just a little bit more than we can cope with. And this has a build-up within our nervous system. Our nervous system can sometimes perceive it as being attacked, and in the process of doing so, it will then release shock. It will release emotional states that we've held on to for a considerable period of time. We will actively look at releasing karma, things that are stuck within our system that we can't move forward with. Okay, we've agreed to live at this higher frequency. We've agreed to take in this light quotient and become part of a rising collective consciousness. So therefore, all of these things that are stored within the bodies and the fields are up for release. Now, the nervous system is the one part of our bodies that is constantly in communication with both the physical world and the higher realms. So it's doing so many different jobs. The brain is not just this lump of matter that we have in the head that science has led us to believe is 90% non-functional, although if you look at most of the planet at the moment you would wonder. And so all of this information, this incredible quantity of information, is coming in via the antecorona bridge, coming down through the chakras, and then it is received and perceived by the crown. Now the crown is part of the brain, the third eye is part of the brain. It then becomes integrated with the nervous system, and that's when we can get overloaded and when we can get a little bit fried. Now, in order to adapt ourselves and become part of this light field, we have to step back, we have to breathe, we have to take it easy. I've spoken many times at the end of last year about our spiritual diet, what we're tuning into. And at the moment, particularly as we're the beginning of the year, it is becoming very apparent that actually keeping our diet clean, our intake of information, is going to be quite tricky to navigate, as all of these new kind of like carnival tricks are being rolled out by the 3D matrix in order to capture our attention. It's an inevitable process as we move further away from spiritual captivity to be drawn back into the thing that we were part of previously. And that's just the way things are at the moment. That's the visibility of the polarity. Now 2023 in particular is going to see a very increased visibility and of the things that you and I are already aware of, but other people aren't. And this is also ties in very much with the next level of the Great Awakening. So not only today am I looking at the effect of this recent upgrade on our nervous system, also looking at the effects that are going to be seen and witnessed by us from a hopefully detached point of observation with the world around us. So all of this stuff is coming out in the media at the moment. You know, like a lot of us in the UK are witnessing sort of like a slow kind of creeping back in, maybe, of the previous restrictions. There is the bringing forth of an old narrative that we're actually looking at and going, how can you possibly be trying to replay this again? It's also, it's happening again. Now, one thing I am going to be this year is a little bit more kind of frank in my observations. In the last 3 years, I've been very kind of Switzerland about what I speak about and how I present the information. This year, I think we need to be standing up and speaking from a point of love about what we see. Okay, so that is part of our tasks, that's part of our duty, that's our job, to observe what we see in the point in the format with which we are seeing it. And of course there's going to be different versions of those observations all around us, but we're going to find, like water finds a level, we're all going to be seeing the same thing, but just through our different filters. So for those of you out there at the moment are feeling this pressure in the nervous system, step back. Okay, step back and do things which calm your soul. Go for a walk barefoot. Is one of the absolute magical gifts that we can give ourselves, even in the winter. Go outside for 5 minutes and put your feet upon the earth and allow you to connect. A lot of the stuff that you are holding within your nervous system that's kind of bouncing around a little bit like lightning with no grounding will immediately kind of, it will ionize within the earth, and it will, and you will just feel it slowly but surely just dissipating. We all need to be taking these steps to ensure that we don't go into a state of spiritual shock. Because once you've gone in, once your system has kind of, even though you consciously might be still highly functional, the nervous system is still responding in a way that it might be considering this incredible increase in light a threat. That's what the nervous system does. It responds to our previous programming. So unless we take that very specific time to meditate, to breathe, to walk on the earth, to be in nature, to ground, to allow ourselves breathing space when things get pressurized. Talk about with an open heart the things that we're sensing and feeling and seeing. Those will become stuck within the system, and the system will become overloaded. So first part of the Woodland Chronicles this year is about allowing ourselves time and space to breathe, relax, recuperate, regenerate, and also be very prepared for what we are about to see around us, because we can all see it from the higher perspective. We're seeing hopefully the good in the situations, but remember what has happened now to the energies. Okay, all 4 spheres of reality, the 3D, the 4D, the 5D, and the higher frequency light that is contained within our bodies, which would be classed as 6D, has all been squeezed into one space. So there is no more buffer zone. There's no more baby rains or opportunities to kind of wander off the path and then gently be guided and corrected back onto it. The energy is of one frequency, and it has one intention, and that is to take this planet into a higher state of consciousness. And it's not going to hold back. So for those of you that have many times looked around, like I made the comment earlier on about looking at the world and wondering what's happened to the conscious minds of everybody, we're going to be witnessing even more pressure upon these souls to step into their higher frequency, to acknowledge the agreements that they've made on their ascension pathway, to step into the light. And although we can kind of maybe joke amongst ourselves about this, it's not really a joking matter, because these souls are under an incredible amount of pressure. And it's imagine being asleep still in this vibration. Imagine having the willpower and the stubbornness, or maybe the disadvantage of one of the soul contracts that has agreed for you to still be asleep and wake up under pressure with what we are being presented with this year. It's not an enviable situation, but on one side, they've got a huge amount of support waiting on the other side of the gate. Now that's the beautiful part about where we are on this pathway now. Once you've woken up, once you've taken the steps, once the blinkers have come off, and that's when the shock really sets in, when people are suddenly able to see, and they are bombarded with so much information simultaneously they don't know where to turn. That's when we step in. That's going to be one of our primary roles this year, is to be that stoic and very unshakable field of support. That's what the new souls that have acknowledged the role of the golden robe are going to be doing. It's almost like, imagine one person in a dark room waking up and having nothing but darkness around them to perceive with their senses, and they start to go into a state of panic, and all of a sudden there's just a circle of golden angels stood round them, offering them love and support. That's what we're going to be doing to the people that are waking up, and to the people that are not yet in a state to acknowledge and see and be part of what we are yet. But they're going to have to, one way or another, acknowledge this energy and step into it. And we've all been blessed with the gift of awakening, the gift of sight, the gift of heart-centeredness, and we're going to be asked to use it. We're going to be asked to use it on a regular daily basis. And one thing that I was talking about on the Tuesday night in my live presentation was how things have changed so much that we are now who we are. Okay, years ago we used to have to hide our spirituality. There was no kind of real, unless you lived in Glastonbury or something like that, when you can walk up and down the road in your wizard outfit and people won't bat an eyelid. But now, in everyday life, you'd have to go about your existence within the matrix as part of the conformity. But we don't have to do that anymore. We can be who we wish to be, and we can express that aspect of ourselves in whatever way. And a sign of this opening and rising consciousness is the fact that that is far more acceptable now, and it's actually supported by the universal energies for us to be that individual. So being spiritual is not something that we hide anymore. And what you will see and what you will witness is many, many different types of acknowledgement of spirituality. It might not be like you and I identify with. It might not be somebody who's immediately into healing, crystals, going to spiritual gatherings like we enjoy doing. They might just simply be in tune with their heart and accessing the knowledge of the world in the way that they see fit. So be prepared for all manners of awakened souls in different roles, in different spaces, in different countries. You know, the geographic location is irrelevant, apart from the fact some places on this planet have been very much more gifted with that space, and others are really under pressure to escape the karma and the programming they've had for so long. But the pressure is on now. The light is coming in at such a quantity, and the bandwidth of our existence has been set at a level that is non-negotiable. It sounds like quite a hard thing to talk about, or you know, we're now living on a planet that is not giving any leeway to the lower frequencies. So for those of you out there that might still be worried about what the kind of the lower forces are doing, what they've got planned, what they're bringing out in the media, what you know, what restrictions or kind of dark futures that they kind of trying to plan for us, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter how hard they try. It's always going to come to a grinding halt. And effectively, the more they do it, the more they wake people up. So just let them carry on with it for the time being. Let them have their party for as long as it is sustainable, because it makes our job easier. In the long run, it makes our job easier, because we can just sit back and watch these people breaking through the fifth veil of the third eye. Now, the fifth veil of the third eye, we have 7 when we incarnate. Okay, and when we got to, I think it was August 2020, the fifth veil of amnesia was removed from all of the third eyes around the planet, and it is simply down to intensive programming and, you know, like magic basically, that has kept people unable to see. So the breaking of the program has truly begun, and that breaking of the program is not a soft process. It's not something that is taken lightly by the people that are involved in it. It's an immediate dark night of the soul. And we all know, we've all personally been through at least one dark night of the soul since our awakening. If you're listening to this, you might have woken up since 2020. If you're awake before 2020, you will be well acquainted with how stepping onto the spiritual pathway can put you into what we term as a dark night of the soul. And that dark night of the soul can be anything. It can just simply be the realization of having lived in kind of a simulation, so to speak, that is completely removed from the light of source. Or it could be the fact that you have been applying yourself to things that are totally out of alignment with your soul's calling. That alone will put you into the dark night of the soul while you navigate from the ego to the heart. That's essentially the description for what a dark night of the soul is. It's almost like the spiritual battlefield that a human being goes through when they disassociate from the ego and move into the heart center, and the battle is with the ego. And it's not really a battle. It's learning to love the ego calm it down. Say that you are still the ego's friend and that you'll be working with it, but you'll be working with the ego on your terms. Because none of us will ever be free of ego, not while we're human beings living on this planet. We will always identify at some point with the ego, because anything less would be just, it's fanciful. So, but when we're working from the heart, when we're working from a state of higher consciousness, the ego becomes our friend. We learn to use it the same way as we learn to use our emotional state. Instead of being controlled by anger, we channel it, we use it. Instead of being controlled by sadness or the other emotions that can simply swamp us as human beings, we channel it, we discipline it, we use it, we apply it to what we're doing, and eventually we return back to our heart-centeredness if it has knocked us out. Okay, so these are my observations for the first week of this year, my first Friday update, and I think we're in for a very, very interesting January, a beautifully interesting January, depending on how we are choosing to view it. So for all of you still integrating that incredible quantity of solstice light, if it's pushing you, step back, put your bare feet on the earth or the snow or the sand, depending on where you are on this planet, and ground in. Take time to go out in nature, connect with a tree, connect with the bird's song, what you have around you, the sun, the rain, the wind, whatever is available to you. Become one with the elements. Allow the elements to cleanse you, ground you, and just set your intention to set yourself back into alignment again. And treat your nervous system as it is as a friend. Calm it down, soothe it, speak to it. Make sure that your spiritual diet is as clean as it possibly can be. Don't feed it rubbish, okay? Because there's a lot of rubbish available, especially now that we are seeing this re-emergence of things that we actually thought had gone away. And you'll know what I'm talking about, the restrictions, the kind of the carnival of nonsense that you see from the so-called authorities coming out. There's gonna be a little bit more of that coming back again, but it will be fizzled out like all poorly lit bonfires are. Sending you all lots of love. I will be back on Tuesday the 10th, I believe it is Tuesday the 10th, with my good friend Alice Heath, and we're going to be working with the incredible souls from Orion. So we've got a lovely workshop in store for you. I'll put the details for signing up underneath this video, and yeah, see you there if you're joining us. Bye for now.